This is a Zoom meeting for the City of Fillmore Planning Commission, and we're going to go ahead and call to order this meeting, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So there is a flag behind me on the Zoom meeting, so please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. And Inez, can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Carrie Brogy.
Here.
Vice Chair Jamie Labor.
Here.
Commissioner Aaron Todd.
Here.
Commissioner Albert Mendez.
Present.
Commissioner Miguel Magallanes.
Here.
Okay, so we'll go right into item number 4, the election of the Planning Commission Chair. This is when we change our annual, commission, our chair, as well as the vice chair. So Inez, do you want to handle that?
So, excuse me, let me get to the right spot here. I believe we just need a nomination for election of Planning Commission Chair.
So I'd like to nominate Miguel for chairperson.
And I will second that. So we have a nomination and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And Miguel, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
That passes. Okay, so vice chair. I'm sorry, Inez, I kind of took over.
No, that's okay. It's
Okay.
just
I'd like
basically
to
the same thing.
nominate Aaron Todd for vice chair.
And I'll second that. So we motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll check with Aaron also. You're good with that as well as vice chair?
Yes, thank you.
And you realize vice chair stepped in if the chair is not available to run the meeting?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great. I appreciate that. Okay, so we will make that change now, won't we, Inez?
Yes, I believe from now, the rest of the meeting will be led by Chair Miguel Magallanes, and we go on from there.
So do we have to get
Thank
up
you,
and
Inez.
if the nurse take a spot?
What? I missed that. What'd you say, Albert?
Do we have to like move around and he gets the chair spot now?
Spin a circle.
I'll put myself in the middle.
There you go.
We'll start with action item 6, oral communications. This is the opportunity for citizens presentations or comments not related to agenda items, but within the responsibility of Fillmore Planning Commission. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Do we have any, Inez?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, then we'll move on to section 7. On the consent calendar, 7A, we have the minutes of December 15th. If we're going to need a motion to approve them.
I'll move to approve the minutes of December 7th,
15th.
15th, sorry.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Bear with me if I'm a little rusty. I'm trying to get the feel for
That's
this.
okay.
All right. Or if I'm going too fast, if I miss something, please let me know. We'll move on to section. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I could just make a brief housekeeping comment. Inez, for the public hearing agenda items, just remember to do a roll call vote.
Okay, did you, should I have done that for the minutes as well?
No, that's okay. Since we can just have the record reflect that it was a 5-0 unanimous vote, I think
Okay.
it's sufficiently clear that everybody voted in
Okay,
approving the minutes. But I just, for those public
Sure.
hearing items.
I understand. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll move to action 8 or section 8, public hearings. 8A. I hand this over to staff at this moment? To Brian. I'll hand it over to Brian to let us inform us more on section 80.
I haven't even seen Brian. Is he on with us, Inez?
Yeah, I see him, but I just don't
Yes.
hear him.
He's there. Brian, can you hear us? I don't know if he,
He pointed to his ears a moment ago.
Yeah.
maybe some technical difficulties. Maybe we give him a minute. Oh, he
I
can't.
think he's saying he can't hear.
I think maybe he's trying to re-sign in, possibly reconnect.
Looks like he joined. Brian, are you online? I see in the participant list.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Brian.
Now we hear you.
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, I have some reason my I couldn't hear, everything went out and I relogged back in and now I'm back. I can hear you again. Technical difficulty, I suppose.
So
We're
Brian,
in
we're
section
on item
8A.
8A.
Okay. Let me share my screen real quick. Whoever's hosting, I need to share screen. Can you guys see my screen?
No.
Production staff, I need to do share screen. You locked me out.
Looks like Erica is the host now.
My host screen share is disabled.
Erica, can you hear us?
She's muted.
Or maybe it's not Erica, it's just the account of Erica. It's showing that they're the host and we need to get enable this screen share. Inez, are you there? I'm wondering if you could help out.
Let me see what I can, I'm not sure if I could do this. Hold on one moment. I think they just made Brian the host. Are you able to share your screen now, Brian? I guess maybe he's getting some assistance.
Yeah.
Okay, the technical staff is working on the issue right now.
Can we move on to another item and come back to this item?
Sure.
Would 8B be a good item to start working on? I imagine that also needs a presentation.
Items A, B, and C are PowerPoints.
It sounds like we're gonna have to wait till the sharing comes online.
Maybe we should go back to in-person meeting.
Is there an update on the sharing?
Okay, go ahead. You can share now.
Brian, I think we're ready. I don't know if you could, if you have the capability to share.
Yay.
Hey,
There we go.
Right for
We
here.
can see your screen.
okay. And can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Here's item 8A. And this is a zoning ordinance amendment. This will amend ordinance. This is ordinance 22-937. And this is to amend the municipal code to prohibit accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units in the severe high fire hazard zone. Our zoning ordinance section is 6.04.0415. You last adopted an amendment to this ordinance in 2020. This is the most recent update. The reason we're prohibiting accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units in the high fire hazard zone is because the Fillmore Fire Department administers that zone based on the CAL FIRE zone maps, and having the additional density and structure proximity to each other makes it more difficult to fight wildfire hazards that would be coming in from the hillsides. And it also would help to prevent fires from within the homes or within those structures from spreading out into those fire hazard zones. So this zone is shown here in red. So it affects that, that portion of the foothills here in Fillmore. And there are basically no standards by which you could do an accessory dwelling unit or junior accessory dwelling unit. They would be wholly banned. This exemption or this preclusion from ADUs is exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act under statutory regulations. The Planning Commission is making a recommendation in this case to the City Council to adopt this ordinance amendment. Staff's recommendation here is that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 22-1021, recommending the City Council approval of zoning ordinance amendment 2201 to prohibit ADUs and junior ADUs in the very high fire hazard severity zone and a finding of exemption from CEQA. I can answer any questions.
How does this pertain to existing accessory dwelling units in that zone right now?
Anything that's existing or has been permitted before this is legally existing. So they would continue that use. This would preclude any new permitting.
Is there any other questions from the commissioners? Comments?
Yeah, just one for Brian. So this is going to cover everything in the red spectrum, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So just that zone that's in red there.
Just out of curiosity, I guess at the furthest northern peak of that, is there a reason it didn't go into that, or not?
This zone is established by CAL FIRE. So it's the California Department of Fire and Forestry. And they do fire analysis, a whole bunch of scientific parameters that go into this. I couldn't tell you what those are, but most likely the area that up at that most northerly portion abuts the Sespe Creek. And that's not considered in the fire hazard zone. This is kind of more down in the foothills.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
There
and
are
are
a
there
lot of
even-
different environmental factors that go into this mapping. It's highly scientific.
Are there even any residents or houses up in that area to begin with? I mean, or is that undeveloped? In that very
You know,
northern,
Yeah, I mean, there are a spattering of houses up there. It's mostly very large lots and agriculture. You know, outside of that is also the county area. So what you're looking at there in gray is the city boundary.
right?
So there may be some county areas within county jurisdiction that are still showing that they're within the very, very high fire hazard severity zone. And that would be up to the county of Ventura to establish their land use regulations in those areas outside the city.
Okay.
Is there
That could,
one
oh,
more
I'm sorry.
one more question? Is there a frequency that this is reviewed by CAL FIRE?
This last update, I believe, is about 2007, 2008, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't think it's very frequent, but when you have new fires, you know, I think they do reevaluate after every fire season, as far as I understand. I can get some more answers for you by speaking with the fire chief if you'd like, and get those back to you if you have more
Okay.
specifics. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I would have thought that it would have been updated after 2017, after the Thomas fire, but
It could have been up in that area. You know, so this is only showing city of Fillmore. The Thomas Aquinas fire kind of came down to the foothills there north of Sespe Creek, and it didn't actually jump the creek at that time. But you might remember that fire was pushing very quickly west and north. And I don't know if that affected that fire hazard zone. What I could do is send you a broader scope map. If I were to go into the county's GIS system I could see the fire hazard zone for the entire county, and that would give you a more perspective on the grand scheme of the region. But again, this zoning ordinance amendment only affects within the city's boundaries. So anything outside of the city boundary is either somebody else's jurisdiction, like such as the county, or adjoining cities like Santa Paula or Ventura. They may not have the same prohibition on ADUs in these zones.
I had a question, Brian. What drives for us to look at this in the future? Because it looks like the fires didn't drive it. I mean, is there any specific driver that will have us looking at this in the next 6 or 5 years?
Looking at the fire hazard zone delineation?
Yeah, or at the ordinance again. I mean, they do this, I guess, every season of fires, but what drives us looking back at the ordinance and saying we have to adopt these severity zones into our ADU / junior ADU?
Well, the ADU laws are relatively recent. It was adopted, I believe, initially, Michael, be able to correct me, 2019, I want to say, and then amended in 2020, somewhere in that neighborhood. And it, we sort of adopted what are the state regulations. And then as this goes into practice, we kind of see, how it's working, and we can evaluate things more specifically as we go. And this was done in consultation with the fire chief. That, we also looked at the state law, and it was thought that, the state does allow this discretion of the fire chief to prohibit the ADUs in that zone. So we thought, given the high fire hazard, that would make sense here in Fillmore. But there's no set timing as to when staff might have some kind of cycle of review of this ordinance. This has just been sort of a accumulation of practice over the last 2 years.
Is there any other questions for the commissioners?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So all we're looking at, Brian, is simply the ordinance pertaining to whether the ADUs can be in the red zone or not. The map itself, the red zone itself, is determined by fire, by our fire department in the city boundaries. Everything outside city boundaries is up to the county, but the map itself is not something that we need to concern ourselves with tonight. Am I correct on that? It's just the ADUs.
Yes, I mean, there hasn't been an official adoption of this map per se, but this is the map that the fire department here and the fire chief uses to identify, based on what state science is telling them about where are the high fire hazard zones. And then it's within the fire chief's discretion to determine what kinds of protections you need to have in these zones.
Okay, well, I will make a motion to adopt the Planning Commission Resolution 22-1023, recommending City Council approve zoning ordinance 22-01 to prohibit accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units in the hazard severity zone, and finding of exemption from CEQA.
Before we just to interject, before we go ahead, could we open the public hearing and see if there's anybody for public comment on this? I didn't see anybody on the Zoom, but just get that as part of the record.
Ines, do we have anybody?
Not to my knowledge, unless they reached out to Brian.
I have received no public comments.
Okay, so we've opened the public hearing, and there's anybody from the public here to speak on this item?
Not to my knowledge, not on this item, no.
Okay, very good.
I'll
Okay.
second that motion.
Can we close the public hearing?
Yeah, I'll close the public hearing and proceed with the motion. I think,
I'll second that motion.
yeah, Alvaro's. All in favor?
Aye.
Or do we
Aye.
want a roll call?
Yeah, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Chair Miguel Magallanes,
Aye. Yes.
Vice Chair Aaron Todd,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrie Brogy,
Yes.
Commissioner Jamie Labor,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert Mendez.
Yes.
That recommends the zoning ordinance. We'll move over to item 8B, and I'll hand it over to Brian. I believe that has a PowerPoint as well.
Thank you, Planning Commission. This item is 8B. This is for a development permit 1401, modification number 2, and conditional use permit 2107. And this is for the Red Engine Brewery, and it's at 803 Ventura Street. Location is shown here on this slide. It makes up the westerly portion of this parcel. It's all one contiguous parcel at this point, or one contiguous lot at this point. North side of Ventura Street, State Route 126. Residences are to the north. You have the motel there to the west, vacant lot to the east, which is another subject tonight. And then beyond that, to the east, you have the Super A shopping center. The project is in the commercial highway zone. And in the commercial highway zone, to do a brewery restaurant, you are required to get a development permit and a conditional use permit for a project that involves an alcohol beverage control license. A summary of the project: as I said, it's a new microbrewery restaurant operation. It would occupy the existing structure. You might recall it's the former Family Dollar retail store. The commission, I believe, approved that back in 2014. So it's going to go into that building, which has been vacated by Family Dollar. The project will include very minimal exterior improvements. There is an additional sign that will be added to the frontage. They'll improve some of the landscaping, adding a strip of landscaping and greening up some of the rest of the landscaping. It will include a driveway connection to the portion of the property on the east side. They will be adding parking stalls, a total of 14 net new stalls. And as I mentioned, they will be serving alcoholic beverages in the form of beer, obviously because they are brewing beer on site. What you see here is a site plan. So you have the existing structure in the center of the site, and you have your two-way traffic traveling around the site. The driveway is Highway 126. And it has a shared driveway with the adjacent property that's to be developed, and we'll be discussing that project shortly. It's adding parking to the rear. It's not changing any of the landscaping or the configuration in the rear. It's simply adding striping to put these stalls at the back. Otherwise, no change really to the earthwork. They are adding landscaping, so there's a strip of about 4 feet of landscaping, which will run along the east side of the property, and that provides a buffer that's required by code. That'll provide a buffer to the adjacent property or the adjacent land use. Includes a combination of trees and shrubs and small ground covers. And it's approximately 14.7% of this side of the property, which is a lot under tentative parcel map, which you recently approved. And this slide is just showing the landscaping on the northern section. You can see the driveway there that bisects the property boundary. The site, the floor plan has been divided up into numerous different areas to accommodate brewing, office space, retail. It'll have a kitchen, which will include heating up of pizza, I believe. There'll be a cornhole play area and seating. It'll offer takeout of beer that's been brewed on site. So it's sold for retail and off-site consumption as well as on-site. So that gives you kind of a breakdown of how the floor plan looks. And there's an image of the south elevation. Again, the building itself on the exterior is really not changing. You're just going to see that red engine sign. And that meets the sign standards. So just an overall look at what the zoning code requires and what the Ventura Street design guidelines require. Again, it's really not changing. The lot area, it's a minimum of 20,000 square feet, and it's significantly above the minimum lot size. Lot coverage is significantly below what the max is. The height is 32 feet. That all remains the same. Front setbacks are ample. Side and rear setbacks are also ample, so there's no change there. Parking, they did need to add additional parking stalls, and so that's reflected in the 47 stalls, and that meets the Fillmore municipal code requirement of 46 stalls. Landscaping was added to, and that's sufficient to cover what's required in the guidelines. And then this is a short summary of the parking, so you can see there's an additional, a net new 13 new stalls. And this is a summary of the analysis. The details are in the staff report, and the details of all the findings are in your resolution. Overall, staff determined that the project meets the findings applicable for a development permit in accordance with the municipal code. It meets the findings for issuance of the conditional use permit, including meeting all of the standards for alcohol, and they will obtain an alcohol license from the state. Pursuant to CEQA, staff found that the project would be exempt as an existing facility and also exempt for the new construction. And the alcohol sales is also exempt as it's considered just a license. So there's really no new environmental consequence as a result of the project changes to the property. Staff's recommendation is that City Council adopt the categorical exemption for DP 1401 modification 2 and CUP 2107. Number 2, we recommend that Planning Commission adopt resolution 22-1024 approving development permit 1401 mod 2 and a categorical exemption for that entitlement, subject to conditions of approval. And 3rd, staff recommends Planning Commission adopt resolution 22-1025 approving conditional use permit 2107, a finding of public convenience or necessity for the alcohol license. And that's also subject to the condition of approval, which are in your package. I'm here to answer any questions, and I believe the applicant is also online if you'd like to ask any questions of the applicant.
Does the applicant have an additional presentation, or are they just available for questions?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Preston. No, I do not have a presentation, but I'm definitely here to answer any questions about the project.
Thank you, Preston. Do we open it up for questions, Michael, or to the public?
Wait,
for public
what
hearing?
The Planning Commission would do at this time is first, any questions that are for Brian or staff, go ahead and ask those. And it sounds like the applicant does not have a presentation, but it's here for questions. Then next would be questions for the applicant. And then once those series of questions, if any, have been asked, then at that time, you'd open the public hearing and take any public comment on the project.
Okay. Planning commissioners, any questions for staff?
I have a question about security cameras. Can you just give me a rundown of how many security cameras will be in place and where they will be? Just because it's going to be selling alcohol, beer. Just want to make sure that there's some coverage of security cameras, and that also that the police department would have access to those.
Yeah, I'm sure the police department can have access to the videos if there's a need for that, for file recovery or something like that. That's absolutely. And then the cameras are, I don't have a count offhand, but the cameras are all exactly the same as the previous store. So there's 360 degrees and interior cameras all in place, the hardware.
Brian, could you answer, sir, just for clarification, these first sets of questions are going to be for staff. And then the commissioners, once the staff questions have been asked, they'll ask you if they have questions.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Commissioner Labor. The police department did review this project through several rounds of review, and the police chief visited the site as well. And he was satisfied with the security, including security cameras, which had been put in place, as mentioned by Preston. There are cameras at the rear, at the front and inside, and possibly on the sides of the building as well. But that is in fact something that the police chief has agreed to, that it's sufficient, and it is a condition of approval in the permit as well. So for the long term, we could revisit that at any time, and if it doesn't meet if it turns out that it's not meeting the chief's requirements or something's not functioning, we do have that ability to come back to this applicant and require any additional cameras.
Okay, and then I have a second question about the consumption of the beer. Will that all be occurring inside, or is there any potential that there's like garage doors that would be open and there'd be people outside? I'm just thinking about noise and neighbors on the north side.
Currently, they haven't proposed any outdoor operations. Everything's going to stay contained within inside the building. If they were to have some kind of an event, although nothing's going to be baked into the permit now, they could at some point pursue a temporary use permit, perhaps, if they were to have some kind of an outdoor event. And then in which case we would evaluate that event specifically, and have additional police review and fire department review and noise mitigation going into that on an individualized basis, but it wouldn't be an ordinary operation component.
I have a question for you, Brian. I went through and either I didn't see it or I overlooked it. Has there been a discussion on delivery times as far as when this location will receive deliveries?
Yes, well, we restrict deliveries from, I believe it's 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that's coincides with our zoning ordinance for noise, because delivery trucks, obviously they do cause noise, and we are sensitive to the residents at the north. And so deliveries are prohibited from happening within those sensitive noise hours. So but they could receive, deliveries anytime during the day and till 10 p.m. at night. But I believe their operation is going to be shut down by 9 o'clock in any case.
Because I did see in one of them where the hours were, I believe it said the employees were on site till I believe 1 a.m. So it was just more of a question of deliveries and the respect to the neighbors to the north.
Yeah, I believe they'll have employees on site, doing some of the brewing type things, which, the interior stuff. But there is no plan to have deliveries at that hour.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Do we have any other questions?
I don't have any questions, Miguel, but just a comment that I'm actually thrilled to see this project coming into Fillmore. And I just think it's something that's going to be different, and I think it'll be a success. So I like the way it's looking. I like the fact that it's in that building that it's in, where we've already just a few short years ago approved it in the first place, when it became occupied by the previous tenant and met all the criteria. So I think we're ahead of the game in that sense. So I think it's a great project.
A lot of people in Fillmore are excited about it. There's social media posts for it and a lot of good talk, and I'm excited for it as well. I think it's in a great location. I think they'll do very well, and I'm excited to go on in.
Yeah, the one question I did have.
Just interrupt. Can we hold off on these comments until after the public hearing, just so anybody from the public who might be there has an opportunity, and then we can open it up to these.
Sure.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Actually had a question for Brian. I saw the amount of seating around the bar and the tables. I was wondering what the capacity for that building was. Is there an ability for them to put more tables and remove the cornhole in the future? Or I'm not too sure if they're planning to mitigate it. Maybe it's a question for the applicant, but I was going to see if Brian had any input.
Yeah, maybe I'll answer a bit of it, then maybe the applicant can contribute also. The seating area is somewhat constrained. It's somewhat small, because we also calculate parking, so that the interior is mostly geared toward the brewing process. And then there's the tasting and the bar area, which I think are maybe more minor to the overall brewing component of it. And that all played into the parking calculation. And the cornhole was just meant to appeal to, numerous people and to have people kind of stay there for long periods of time and enjoy the tasting and that kind of thing. If they were to have maybe a special event or something like that, where they wanted to expand the seating area, then they could come in and let us know about that. And we would work to maybe come up with some temporary parking.
Okay, so they kind of work hand in hand, the parking and the seating.
Yeah, the parking and the seating work hand in hand. And the applicant had thought about how their operations are going to run. And so they designed a floor plan that they believe is consistent with the overall operations and the function of it, and also considering the parking capacity that they have. And he may be able to speak more to that as to how he envisions that kind of interior breakdown.
Okay, I think that concludes all the questions for you, Brian. We'll
Okay.
I got one
switch it
more.
over. Okay.
I got one more. Was in the slide that you showed about the parking stalls, it showed one ADA stall was removed. Was there a reason an ADA compliant stall parking stall was removed?
Let me go back to that. I think
So Aaron, were you saying there was 3? Because I thought I saw 2 in the front,
Yeah.
1 on each side.
Yeah, it says stall eliminated ADA loading.
yeah.
Oh, I see.
So what that means, Commissioner Todd, is that there had previously been a regular parking stall at that location that was eliminated because they added accessibility stall adjacent to it. And then what they do is they stripe out that other stall so that you have room for loading and unloading. You've seen the vans that kind of pull up and they'll have loading mechanisms. So it takes up more of than just one stall for ADA loading and unloading. And that's all consistent with current building code. So it wasn't eliminating an ADA stall, it was eliminating a standard stall to accommodate ADA.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then that will conclude the questions for staff, and we'll go over to the applicant. Any questions for Preston? And I think I'll start by
Miguel, before you go, hi, everybody. So I am Carolina Henao. I'm the architect on the project. I'm also open for any type of questions. I'm here to answer. I have a couple of questions in regards to the prior comments by the council members. So, but I just wanted to introduce myself and say that I am here also to answer. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Magallanes.
Thank you, Carolina. I'll start with my question, and then we'll open it up to the commissioners in regarding to the seating. Is there plans for special events? And it sounds like there's no outdoor seating being planned, kind of patio style post-COVID seating. And if there was, then it would have to go to the city again. But interior wise, is there, I guess, the ability to expand seating if necessary? And how would that be tackled or addressed?
Well, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I think the actual chairs that are like represented in the picture, I think most likely like a bench or something like that is what's actually going to be there. So like you probably saw the image and said, oh, well, there's, 12 people sitting in this giant building. But I don't think that's going to be as accurate as the bench style seating that we have in that area. And we'll obviously try to pack it in to maximize or best utilize the space. But the space was kind of the seating calcs were really limiting because our use right now is restaurant. So we got placed into that category when it came to some of the parking requirements for your seating area. So if potentially in the future you guys develop a brewery use that would kind of fit our model more, that be an opportunity also to expand some seating area. But that's not to say that people also can't stand in that area and walk around the space and take their beverage with them. So I think we're gonna have a little arcade area as well, which will be kind of standing, and the cornhole, obviously that's like standing. And so there'll be a couple of places to be with beer other than a seat.
Okay.
So just to clarify a little bit better with numbers, this thing. So right now, based on the space calculations, we can fit 48 occupants on the seats, and then we can fit 10 occupants on the cornhole area. That gives us 58 occupants just in that area that complies with the parking requirements and the occupancy requirements. So you're looking at a normal operation of maximum 58. And of course, like Preston was expressing, in case that there's a special event or something, we could try to accommodate maybe some standing occupants. But the intention was always to keep up with the regulations of the code, and that constricted our seating area. So that's what we can offer right now.
Thank you.
I think I saw
Any
something
other-
about a VIP area. Does that take into account that area as well?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, Mr. Mendez?
Isn't there, in the plan, I think I saw something about a VIP area? Does that seating take that space into account as well?
Unfortunately, yeah, it is taken into account in the whole consideration. The problem that we have with that, it was getting too high on occupancy. So we actually have to reassess the use of that section, and it has to be for retail. So, but we are compliant with that. Right now you're seeing, let me just confirm. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to the plan. We have 4 occupants that we can do on retail right now based on the code. So those 3 occupants are calculated within the whole, usage and occupancy load factor.
Any other questions for the applicant, commissioners?
I'm going
Yeah,
through it. Go ahead, Carrie. I'm still trying to find it.
That's okay. Just a quick question with regard to what you're offering as far as beverage. I understand beer, obviously, but I'm assuming, and did I hear somebody say that it was pizza, or is there anything else additional that's being included in that?
Yeah, so we are going to do pizzas, and then like our focus will be like on non-cook style appetizers, or things that could also be cooked like in our little pizza warming conveyor belt, but like charcuterie boards, cheese and crackers, like little breads and spreads, like stuff like that. That's kind of be on like the medium to higher end side ingredient wise, but definitely not like a full-fledged restaurant, because we're a brewery first and food service second.
And then your type 23 ABC licensing, when I'm asking for a friend, does that include beer and wine, or is that just the beer?
No, it's just beer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there plans to bring in food trucks too? I know a lot of the other breweries bring in food trucks. Is that a plan here too?
So the food truck thing is really, like, you guys had previously spoken about events. If there was like a scenario where we were doing something on a larger scale or needed assistance, like with food, that might be something that we try. But if we do, like, on a regular basis, anybody who goes out to the food truck is kind of like spending money outside of our walls. So that's not super beneficial.
Our
Is there
code
also-
our code doesn't allow you to have alcohol alone. You have to have a restaurant component to it. And so this application was coming in to utilize our existing code, even though everything doesn't fit just perfectly. It didn't come with an application to have a brewery, which may have studies that would show it has different requirements for parking or food service and that kind of thing. So it's kind of been tweaked and massaged a bit to fit within our municipal code. I'll just add that color commentary.
Thank you, Brian.
And since we have this minute of, of silence, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I wanted to bring up a question the Commissioner Lever asked earlier in regards to the security cameras. So the fact is that we have 9 cameras positioned outside to all directions to be able to comprehend a 360 degrees outside of the facility. And they are also positioned to take advantage of the location of the post, the lighting post, the lighting standards outside. We do have proposed right now 11 security cameras inside that are also comprehensive to the entire manufacturing and public area of the brewery. So to be able to the same way provide security to the clients and the customers that are going to be inside. I hope that answered the question that you had earlier, sir.
Yes, thank you. And that, I'll just to follow up with Brian on that. Is there an annual inspection to make sure that the cameras are in working order? As like condition, is it like tied to conditions of approval then? Like when you review conditions?
Yeah, we do review the conditions of approval prior to occupancy and make sure that everything is operating. The cameras are supposed to have a direct feed to the police department. And so they could periodically check to make sure they're working. We don't have a set condition compliance review, particular kind of thing, but we do check in from time to time. We do speak with the police chief, and they will make sure that they are getting live feeds, or able to log in. And if we have a complaint or anything like that, then we do inspections after that. The fire department does routine inspections, but we haven't yet had a police routine inspection. You could always make that a condition of approval, Commissioner Lever. You could ask that we add a condition that says the police shall annually review the security cameras and maybe summarize any sort of crime that may be occurring.
I had a question in regards to special events. I know it's not part of it, but is there a thought of bringing in live music or like stand-up shows, just something where there's going to be a speaker and a microphone where it's going to enhance the noise from inside towards the outside, thinking of the neighbors on the north side?
I'm sure live music and stuff like that will be like in the cards at some point. I mean, there's a lot of data that from consumers saying that like that's something that's high on their priority list that they'd like to see. But I don't know how many breweries everyone goes to like regularly, but they're not super busy places during the week. So, I mean, this might be like something that happens once a week, a live event or something like that when there's enough people there for it to really be worth it. But I have my own, the building keeps sounding pretty good. And there's no like major openings on the back other than the doors. And they're be shut all the time. So that's not really, there's no real good way for sound to travel out.
Another consideration is this one. From the residential area, we have a buffer zone of 32 feet. Then we have the parking stalls, which are 18 feet long. Then we have 34.9 feet to actually 45 feet to the first wall of the brewery, plus the size of the brewery. So you're looking around a 200 buffer zone from the area that you can have occupants to where the residential area are, passing through different materials to different spaces. So we consider that the sound is not really going to be a factor that is going to affect the residential occupants, because we have enough distance to buffer any type of sound. So I think we're pretty confident that almost 200 feet of separation. I think that that's actually playing in our favor. And just to refresh a little bit of memory, we do have a very small space for customers. Mostly it's going to be manufacturing, which is also an indication that they're not going to be large events, in case that is your concern, Mr. Magallanes.
Thank you. Yeah, that kind of puts it more into perspective of the buffer. I'm more worried about the hours as well. The amount of noise and with the buffer helps, and also the hours of operation of a special event like that. If it would be during the week, I think now I'll redirect it. I'll leave it like that. I'll leave my comment towards the end. Is there any questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, I've got another one. I remember Kevin talking a while back about grass, and I'm looking at one of the pages where it's showing grass seed of Marathon 2 at 5,356 feet, and curious as to, with the state proclaiming a mega drought, is this something that should be in there? The reason I asked is because one, it's because of the drought, grass needs water. And two, with it being on 126, if it starts to die out, the visual standpoint.
Yeah, we have marathon grass as a consistent component across State Route 126. And the water usage is a calculation for the total site. So they have low water using plants on the balance of the site, which is most everything else. And architects under state law, what's called MWILO, it's a water efficiency landscape ordinance. The landscape architect will do a calculation to show that they're meeting state water efficiency standards. And that's usually built into the plant palette that they've selected and the type of irrigation that they've selected. So the marathon grass, the city likes because it's consistent with the visual appeal of the highway of State Route 126. And then that's factored into the overall calculation.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that concludes our questions. Is there any last questions? Yeah. Then do we open this, Michael, to comments amongst ourselves, or
so what you would do now is
the public?
Open the public hearing and take any public comment if there's anybody from the public wishing to speak on the item.
Thank you. Ines, do we have anybody from the public that has joined for comments?
No one had reached out to me. However, I'm not sure if they had reached out to Brian.
I have received no comments.
Okay. I'll
Is
officially open
the public.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to make a comment? Then with that silence, I'll close the public hearing and open it for comments amongst the planning commissioners. I'll make a first comment. My concern from the questions I've asked, if you could tell, is the noise and the hours that the noise is going to be occurring. I don't know if that could be put in the condition of approval to limit the amount of or the timing of the noise. There is a good buffer, but it is also, I don't think there's anything other than that wall stopping the noise. Anything that gets past the wall is going to travel and obviously die down in about 100 to 150 feet. But if it's quiet and it's 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night and it's during the week, to me, that's a concern. I like everything else about it. It's a good project. It's going to attract a lot of people. I mean, the brewery business is growing and booming everywhere, and I attend to them, and they're really good. Good experience, a good environment, and I think it's something that we need here in Fillmore. So that's my only concern.
Can I address Mr. Magallanes' concern? Where I work at is actually it's at the Stonehouse, and we have live outdoor music maybe 2-3 nights a week, and it's outdoor music. And right across the street we have homes. We've had test that music all the time. The amount of sound that travels, it's even closer to what these homes are. It won't be a problem.
Okay.
And we have live music outside. If they're going to have live music inside, I guarantee you it won't be a problem.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendez. Is there any other comments from other commissioners?
Just reiterating what I said previously, that I think it's a great project for the city. And it's something that we have not had before, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think it'll be just a great addition. So I think we move forward.
I agree. I second your comments, Carrie.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the project too. I think it's a new use in town that we haven't had, and I think it'll definitely be something that the residents will, for the most part, enjoy. And I think it's definitely a good use of that building. I know that the seating area and where people were going to be is going to be, in the front of that building or on the south side of that building. It'll be inside, and all the homes are on the north side. So I really think the noise, I don't anticipate that it's going to be a big issue. So I'm definitely supportive of this project.
Well, and additionally, as the applicant indicated, it's more a production facility as opposed to, a restaurant, like the one that you work at. So I don't see there being a whole lot of people at one given time at the location, unless there is a special event. And then also I had a question or comment here. Brian, what you had mentioned adding as a condition of approval, the need for checking cameras on a regular basis, I believe is what it was. But am I correct on that, Brian?
You could, if the commission would like to have a regular check, that's something you could have.
I would say we don't need that if in
Okay.
fact there is going to be a live feed to the sheriff's office, to the police department. Because, that live feed, when they establish that live feed, and that applies to all businesses and any residents, you should be able to connect to the sheriff's office. I don't see the need to having that condition of approval.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like, if there wasn't that connection to the police department, I would say we would probably need a condition of approval just to make sure that there's ongoing maintenance and that those are being maintained. But because there is going to be a live feed, I think that the police department will monitor that and make sure that it's working at that establishment. So I don't think I'm going to move forward with that additional condition of approval, or that additional condition.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea. I think it'll bring some fresh air to Fillmore. I think the applicants got the right track in mind with it. A lot of good questions have been asked and answered, and I think overall it's well laid out, and I think it's long overdue for Fillmore to have something like this.
I agree. Well, with all those good comments and good questions, we'll proceed to the recommendations. Can we get a motion?
I can read it off if you'd like.
So I think we need to take these one at a time, right?
Okay.
So there's three different recommendations here. So I think we do each one separately.
All right, so I'll start with the first one. So I will make a motion to adopt CEQA categorical exemption for DP 1401, modification number 2, and CUP number 2107.
I'll second.
Can we get a roll call on this?
Chair Miguel Magallanes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Aaron Todd,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrie Broggie,
Yes.
Commissioner Jamie Labor,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert Mendez.
Yes.
Okay, can we get a motion on the second item?
I will make a motion on the second item to adopt the Planning Commission Resolution 22-1024, approving DP number 14-01, modification number 2, and CEQA categorical exemption subject to conditions of approval.
I'll second
We have
that
a
motion.
second. Can we get a roll call on this?
Chair Miguel Magallanes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Aaron Todd,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrie Broggie,
Yes.
Commissioner Jamie Labor,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert Mendez.
Yes.
Now for the final third item, can we get a motion to adopt it?
I'll make a motion that we adopt Planning Commission Resolution 22-1025, approving CUP number 21-07, finding of public conveyance or necessity for ABC license type 23, subject to conditions of approval.
I'll second that.
Inez, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Miguel Magallanes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Aaron Todd,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrie Broggie,
Yes.
Commissioner Jamie Labor,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert Mendez.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 8C, and I'll hand it over to staff. Brian,
Yes, it's Brian again. Thank you, Chair Magallanes.
Senior Planner.
Our final public hearing of the night. I'll go ahead and share my screen once again. You'd be patient with me for one sec.
We could see your screen.
Okay, you can still see that?
Yep.
Very good. Okay, this is the an application for Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen Restaurant. It's development permit 2103 and conditional use permit 2104. This will be located at a new address, 781 Ventura Street. And it'll be right adjacent to the brewery project that you just heard. You might recognize this aerial photo. This makes up the eastern portion of the overall property. And again, it's the same land uses. Roughly to the north, you have your residences. Super A to the east, the brewery will be to your west, and to the south, I believe that's Carl's Jr. All right, the zoning is still commercial highway, and this project is allowed with issuance of a development permit for the construction of the new building and a conditional use permit for a restaurant with a drive-through. Project summary: the new building will be 2,554 square foot restaurant. It'll have a drive-through. It'll have a new driveway on State Route 126. It'll have a monument sign at that entrance. It'll have that driveway connection that we just spoke about to the adjacent property on the west with the brewery. And they'll have a shared access. The drive-through entrance is situated toward the rear of the building, approximately the middle of the property. There'll be a trash enclosure again toward the rear. There'll be pedestrian walkways, a small outdoor seating area near the entrance of the building, landscaping along the perimeter and throughout the parking lot, some low walls, and a street light will be added to the frontage on State Route 126. So here's a picture of the site plan. The structure, the new building, the 2,500 square foot building roughly is in the south, is at the southwest quadrant of the property. You've got your new driveway that will be cut into State Route 126. You've got your shared driveway access. So that allows for emergency vehicle access throughout, and allows tenants or it allows customers on either property to have a second way to get out should one of the driveways be blocked. Your drive-through loops around the building, and we push that drive-through entrance toward the rear so that the stacking is accommodated within the property, in hopes that we would mitigate any stacking that could extend out onto the state route. And the trash enclosure is situated toward the rear, so it's blocked from view by the building and the other landscaping inside. An elevation, this is the south elevation, so this will be the most prominent view from SR 126. So it shows a mix of materials there. You've got the standing pitched roof with the exposed rafters. You've got combinations of veneers, including sort of a vintage wood there that's horizontal. And you've got the can light, sort of a farmhouse style look. And those brick features, different pop outs with architectural articulation. And you have an awning there that covers the front window. The overall architectural theme on this is craftsman, and it was meant to kind of match what you see at the brewery, right adjacent. And this gives you a color view of that. And these are the side elevations. At the top elevation is on the east. So that's what you'll see as you're driving east on 126. And then on the lower picture, that's on the west side. The colors are a bit different for that trellis, as you'll see it later in this presentation. And then it will include ample landscaping. It's just one building on this lot. So it'll be around the perimeter. It includes about 30% coverage on landscaping. It's a variety of shrubs and trees, an aesthetic appeal. And we really wanted to focus the landscaping in terms of screening out the rear of Super A. So as you come into town and you're traveling east on 126, right now you're kind of seeing the back of those buildings. So the applicant graciously added some evergreen trees along that stretch. And there's also, I'll just go to the next slide here, some evergreen trees toward the rear. So that'll help to screen out the residents to the north. And then for visually aesthetic reasons, help to screen out the rear of the Super A. It also has landscaping along the front and along the west boundary, and that helps to screen the drive-through. And it also acts as a bioswale that will clean surface water runoff before it leaves the site. Overall development standards, it's found to be consistent with both the Fillmore Municipal Code and the Ventura Street Design Guidelines. It meets minimum lot area. It's far less than the maximum lot coverage. The height is within the max of 35 feet, and you have ample setbacks on all sides with landscaping, buffering the building and all the adjacent structures. It includes a sign plan. The sign plan is consistent with the municipal code. We have a business identification and wall signs on two sides, the south elevation and the east elevation. And then, as I mentioned, you have a monument sign at the front. The monument sign can be up to 4 feet high. And then parking, they have sufficient parking. The total municipal requirement is 24 stalls, and they've got 41 stalls. The overall sign plan on the project is shown here. The color of the awnings is what's proposed. I believe it's a teal blue. As is the trellis and some of the features that are in the drive-through. So you have your clearance and your menu, or your speaker. And that gives you these side elevations. So again, this is just featuring the signs and the other architectural features like the awnings and the trellis. It's faded back as the building elevations. And that's the picture of the monument sign. So it's 6 feet tall. And overall, the analysis for the municipal code is all in your resolutions and in the staff report. Staff found that the project is consistent with the municipal code for issuance of a development permit. It's consistent for issuance of a conditional use permit for a drive-through. And it was found to be categorically exempt from CEQA under class 1 and also under class 3. So it's limited to minor construction. Staff's recommendation is to adopt a CEQA categorical exemption for DP 2103 and conditional use permit 2104. Adopt resolution 221026 approving development permit 21-03 subject to conditions of approval, and adopt resolution 221027 approving conditional use permit and categorical exemption subject to conditions of approval. And I'm here to answer the questions.
I have 2 right now,
Okay.
and the answers may lead into more. On page 2 of 14 of the, I'm going to go with the architectural design page. It shows that there's a 2,823 square foot office building on this property towards the northeast end of the Popeyes. Is that not true?
There is no office building proposed. Are you looking at the 11 by 17 sheets?
I am not. I am looking at what I printed out. But
Okay.
then I flipped through it and I saw the same slide that you showed. I saw it in my printout. So I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same one, that there's no additional office building in the back.
There is no additional office building in the back. I believe when the printouts came, I believe the project engineer had included some sheets that weren't part of the latest plan set. So unfortunately, that escaped. But the project as proposed is in the staff report and in the large roll of plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second question is for the residents that live back on Santa Clara. In the northeast corner, there's no proposal or anything for maybe people to be able to walk to this restaurant that live back there. They'd have to drive around and drive in. Is there something that could be done for people that would like to walk to this restaurant and not go out, that live back on the north side of this property? Or is that just not an option?
Nobody lives on this property. The residents to the north front the residential street there, and then to the east is the Super A shopping center. And there isn't really a passageway through there. So the only real entrance to this property is from the State Route 126.
Okay, I'm looking at it from behind the Goodwill area, the road, Santa Clara that runs back there. But if there's no walkway behind the Goodwill, then it makes no sense. It makes sense not to have anything. It was just curious for people to be in walking distance that don't have to walk all the way around.
Yeah, there is no existing walkway coming through there. That'd be coming to the rear of the Super A shopping center.
Right.
There's no existing easements or passageway through there. That answers my question. Yeah, okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
I had a question regarding the drive-through. Is the entrance to the drive-through at the north end of the property? Not on the 126, right? On the 126 end.
I think
Brian,
Brian
you're
is
muted.
muted.
Yeah, the entrance to the property is on State Route 126. And then you drive up about midway through the property, you'll go around a landscape island, and then that's where you'll enter the actual drive-through. And then it kind of loops around the west side of the building.
I had a concern. That's what I envisioned that I was seeing, but what I had a concern is at the top where you make that turn to the left and you go above the landscaping. I was wondering if that's going to be an issue for like large trucks to make that turn to go above and come back down and go in. I know it's not that much of a distance, but would it be better if they lower that landscape? That way you can make an immediate left and turn left into the driveway instead of turn left into the drive-through instead of turning left kind of into the other exit and then come back down and in.
Let's see if I can pull that up here real quick.
Can I address that, Brian, while you're looking? Because I had this on some of the other drafts, the plans that I had that included the office building, which we now is obsolete. Those reflected a lengthier piece of landscaping. And I was going to ask the same question. Can you shorten that landscaping so that someone coming in from the 126 doesn't have to almost make a U-turn to get into the drive-through? But on the more current plans that do not reflect the office building, the accurate one, it looks like somebody else had already shortened that piece of landscaping. So I think it's a moot point is what I'm getting at. And I don't know, Miguel, what you're looking at, but my point is that some of these plans reflect two different lengths of landscaping there.
I agree with you. I was looking at the plan with that office at the top right corner. And it looks like from this rendering, they've addressed it. And
exactly. Yeah, I saw the same thing.
I withdraw my question. It's been addressed.
Yeah, so that center median definitely been shortened. I definitely saw what you saw on the plan with the office building. You would have to, it's like, yeah, you're almost making a U-turn, but this center median here has been shortened, so you don't have to make such a drastic turn to get into it. So that looks better.
Now I wanted to add to the drive-through on the exit. I also had that same concern. So let's say we're talking about a full-size truck or even like a U-Haul truck that's trying to go through here, a small box truck. If they're exiting, it would make sense that they drive straight out of the exit, hook a left, and go up the lot and exit through the east exit. But let's say they want to exit out onto the 126. I'm not too sure what that radius and what it needs to be, but it looks also that they might turn onto the incoming traffic onto the driveway to be able to clear that lower portion of the landscaping where I think the sign is.
Yeah, I have a bigger truck, and getting in or getting out of some of these is a nightmare. So I would think maybe positioning the exit of the drive-through straight as you proposed or mentioned versus this kind of horseshoe angle. Yeah.
Yeah. Just because it's very short distance and yeah, it's angled up, and that's, I think, going to be an issue when people are trying to pull out. And let's say somebody's trying to pull out of the parking that is on the Super A side, and somebody's trying to come in, and somebody's trying to exit the drive-through. I could see that it's going to cause an issue.
Brian, I don't know if I can speak. This is Susan Jones, architect with SJA Design Group. Can you hear me?
Yes, and Susan, I think I'll transition my question over to to your section of the meeting, but we'll conclude all these meetings, all these questions with Brian, and then transition over, and I'll bring this question over. But thank you, Susan.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let Susan speak more to that. We went through many iterations on the site plan and the circulation, and I'll leave it to Susan to explain how that radius works.
Do any of the commissioners have any more questions for Brian?
I just wanted to, on the, when you order the talk box, I think that's facing towards the homes in the north, right? So I'm sure there's a condition limiting the volume of that on that where you order, right?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Labor. There is a distance requirement in the code. I believe it's 50 feet, and it's more than the code requirement for distance for that speaker. We also asked that they provide a volume control feature on the speaker, and that was provided to us, and that's included in your package as part of the menu board. And so that allows for control of the noise, and especially during the sensitive noise hours after 10, we would ask that they lower that speaker. And then we have, in addition to the distance, some of that landscaping, the evergreen trees in the rear are also intended to act as a little bit of a noise attenuation feature. The wall in the rear is about 8 feet. So that also knocks down the noise by several dBA. That's decibels. So we feel there's enough built-in project features to control the noise here.
Brian, I did one quick question. I know that way back when we were talking about splitting up this property when we had Chris Baldwin at City Hall, and there was an issue about the kind of the diagonal property line where the previous tenant had a sign. How was that resolved? I mean, I see that we're sharing now a driveway, which is great, but how was, and I'm assuming it was resolved.
Yes, you have that existing sign that you see out there now. And when you approved that tentative track map, that tentative parcel map, it included a condition to demolish that sign. And that's still part of this project as well. And this applicant, Popeyes, is planning to demolish that sign. So it will go away. And then they'll put in their own monument sign, which I showed you at the entrance there. It's a much smaller feature.
Okay.
And the reason that sign, you might recall, that it got demolished was with the new lot configuration, it no longer complied with setbacks.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there was concern about that sign being owned by the property owner, the applicant for that location versus the Popeyes location. Okay, as long as it was resolved, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll direct our questions now to, I believe Susan is here in representation for the applicant. And Susan, I'll start with my question in regards to why that drive-through exit was designed at an angle and not kind of straight into the driveway from the 126.
I think originally we were thinking we didn't want people confused, thinking to enter that way mistakenly. It is wider. If you look closely at the drawings, your minimum standard for a one-way drive, I believe, is only, I think it's only 16 feet, and we're 20 feet wide. And that is to help with the maneuverability of larger trucks. The angle parking also is helping get people in and out easily in a one-way. And we're splitting it with that landscape island to kind of keep or divert traffic or any stacking from the drive-through. And then if it gets if it starts to back up, they can pull out in front and out of the way. But if you feel like that maneuverability is too harsh, then we can definitely go straight or straighter. I think I would then elongate the center island to avoid people from trying to turn in there by mistake. All we can do is stripe it and try to make the paving striped, signage striped, and pull straight ahead and not block the intersection. So that's our concern, and that's what we were trying to do to keep the traffic flowing. But we can definitely look at that and straighten it out more and not have it so angled, and then just bring that center island down so it's easy into the drive-through. But definitely try to deter people from pulling in the wrong way. Because when you got to make a loop to get to those front parking in front of the building.
In addition to straightening it out and to avoid the confusion for people mistakenly going in the exit, couldn't you put in an orange that says exit only in that drive-through area?
Well, there's always signage, so we have an entrance sign in to the drive-through, and we have an exit only, and we pave and stripe the ground. And it is concrete paving at the drive-through versus the asphalt paving. So there is a distinguishability between the drive-through and the asphalt, but drivers are drivers. So, I mean, whatever we can do to deter people turning in, that would be better.
The reason I ask is I've seen one Popeyes where in the drive-through, in the exit part, they had, it almost looked like an arch, and it said exit only, and it was in the orange, the Popeyes orange, and the exit only was in white. And I mean, it stood out. It might have stood 10 foot tall or so, but it stood out. So you saw it when you pulled into this location. I was just curious if something like that could be done in the exit.
Yeah, the clearance bars are usually for the entrance to avoid larger trucks going in to get underneath the canopy and not get stuck. We can look at something a little taller. I've never used one at the exit. And when drivers look, I don't know how high that bar would help versus the lower exit only sign and the paving being striped. But we can definitely look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to completely revamp the wheel. I think if something is in there, and I think it's been alluded to, an exit only sign, something that will help, then I'm on board with that.
Yeah, there is in the vendor package, there is an entrance sign and an exit sign only. That's the beginning and the end of the drive-through, and then also paving or striping the paving. So those are included.
Has it been considered when you're entering from the 126, like a drive-through arrow or sign saying, drive straight to get to the drive-through entrance?
Yes, we can.
Because I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, we can do more directional signs in the middle paving, and as you enter, to say pull forward, drive through this way, or an arrow, like when you go through Starbucks or any other larger drive-throughs, to direct them forward.
Yeah, because I understand what you're trying to achieve, because anybody coming in from the highway would immediately, if that was straight, try to drive in. But my concern is, like, if also I understand, I mean, everybody would, from that exit of the drive-through, would want to exit the 126 and head west to get out of there, because if you continue through the parking, you might have a line from the people that have entered the 126 and are just waiting to turn left into the drive-through. And if you exit that way, you're back and stuck in the line. I mean, this is only when drive-through is backed up, but I'm just trying to make it easier for people to get out of there once they've ordered and they don't want to be in that parking lot. But I guess I'm thinking, only during rush hours, but okay.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm looking at the diagram there, and around that bulb out, it really does seem like there is quite a bit of room. I mean, even if you did have a bigger truck, it seems like there's a lot of room to make that corner. I don't see that that's really going to be too big of an issue. I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to, make it with that bulb out there. It's to make sure that people don't think that's the entrance and pull in. And I don't know. I mean, I understand what you guys are saying, but I think there looks like there's plenty of room, even for a big truck to make that right-hand turn coming out of there to head to the 126.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Jamie, too. I don't have any concerns with the, larger vehicles, and we have a huge truck. And sometimes, driving in with a huge vehicle, you choose, park in a parking spot and walk in and place your order. But yeah, it looks fine to me, but.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with Jamie and Carrie. Looks good.
So the other question was in regards to the speaker and volume control. So there is a volume control on that speaker. The speaker is on the corner, on the northwest corner near the rear of the building is where the speaker is located. And roughly from that speaker to the rear property line or the north property line is about 136 feet away, not including someone's backyard, which might be another 20 feet or more to their building or their residence. So we would be triple, a good 150 feet away to someone's home or window possibly being open from your city ordinance. Plus we do have the sound control and the speaker included.
So, I mean, one other issue that just concerned me a little bit was that there is no outdoor eating patio at all, which is a little bit unusual, I think, for a fast food drive-through place. I mean, was there any consideration of that at all in the planning?
We went through a lot of iterations. It's one of those just balancing everything out. This owner didn't particular request. Usually in most Popeyes, we do have some outdoor seating. But where we wanted the drive approach to connect the brewery, having an outdoor patio sitting too far away from the main entrance didn't seem quite logical. You know what I'm saying? Usually the outdoor patio is at the front of the dining, and this would push everything back over another good 15 feet or more. Which we could, we'd lose, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, maybe 6 or 8 stalls, but we have an excess of stalls because we got rid of the auxiliary building. Oh, that's true. And I think it was Miguel who mentioned it on one of the previous items this evening about, having just gone through COVID. I mean, I would think that would be a concern for any development or any restaurant or whatever going into town. And I think we're headed towards the end of COVID, fortunately, but who knows? It's nice to have that option to have an outdoor eating area for that reason. So. I think, it just really depends. A lot of these restaurants nowadays, people are just either doing the pickup service and go, or they're sitting in their car and go. It's funny, even the outdoor seating isn't being used as much. Some of the restaurants that I've been doing, I do a lot of Popeyes, I do a lot of Carl's Jr.'s and Sonics, and so it's funny, they're all in Dairy Queens, they're all very different. But we can consider that. I can talk it over with the franchisee, and it would just shift everything up 15 feet. Any thoughts on that from the other commissioners?
I'm not too particularly worried about it. Like when we go out, we eat in the car, we bring it home. Plus the trash, I'd worry about, trash overflow and people rummaging through the outside trash and stuff like that.
That's a good point.
And the problem with the outdoor dining is you're getting the service to go out, the employees to go out and wipe it down between people coming. You don't see it. You don't have your eyes on it. So the whole sanitary issue is kind of out the window. And you're just hoping, like, just because you're outdoors, pressure air, things die. I don't know. It's kind of a weird combination of how do you address it the best way. Most people tend, if they stay in their cars if the dining room is full.
Okay, non-issue then. Thank you for that.
Awesome.
I have a question, and maybe it's for Brian. And it goes to, I guess it goes towards the brewery location too. When you're exiting these properties, are vehicles allowed to make a left turn to head eastbound on the 126? Can they cut across the westbound lanes, or is it right turn only, or is it?
No, they can turn left as well. There's a turn pocket there.
Okay.
So they would just come out and get into the turn pocket. There wasn't really a good, we kind of looked at driveways on the opposite side of the street and tried to figure out if there's a way to kind of line them up so that you don't have, people playing chicken, no pun intended, in the middle of the drive, lane there, the little pocket. But there wasn't really a good way to line that up because you had so many driveways on the opposite side.
Okay. Thank you.
One other thing we could do is maybe the driveway approach is actually pretty wide. Well, it's 28 feet. We could make it wider. That would help larger trucks getting out of the driveway, as well as kind of angling that curve down a bit. So we could do, a 32-foot wide drive approach if that's allowed by Public Works. I know some Public Works don't want too wide of a drive approach because then that gets confusing to drivers. But we're open to suggestions.
I feel that would be a good option because I agree with Commissioner Aaron in regards to a lot of these places are drive-through, or I pick up drive-through and take it home, or even or if I'm going to dine in, I'm going to dine in inside where the wiping is being observed and done on a constant basis. But I think, since there's going to be a lot of traffic flow or more traffic flow there and just sitting there, widening, if that's an option, should be able to help with turning in and out from the drive-through and from the 126.
Whether it's 32 or 35 foot, whatever is the appropriate width, we can accommodate that. That's an easy fix.
Brian, is there a limit to how wide that driveway can be?
I'd have to check our standard. I don't believe so, but it will be designed per Caltrans standard. So that's another thing to consider here is there'll be an encroachment permit. And Caltrans will have, what their configurations are required to be. And so, Susan, do you happen to know offhand?
I don't, but I know I have the drawing up in CAD here on my office. And the neighboring drive approach is actually 47, almost 48 feet wide.
I was thinking that one's a really wide one. I think it's wider than what it needs to be for this location. But I think at 32, that gives you 16 feet on each side. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I think 32 is a very reasonable number, so we can easily widen that and flatten it so it's not such a sharp angle.
Is there any other questions? I'm sorry. Is there any other questions for Susan from the planning commissioners? Susan, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Did you have a comment?
No,
I'm
just getting over a cold, so I have just clearing my throat, I think. So I'm good.
Okay, we'll close the questions and open the, bear with me, the public hearing. Inez or Brian, were there any comments from the public submitted?
I did not receive any, so I'm not sure about Brian.
I have not received any.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment or has a question? I'll open the public hearing. It sounds like there isn't, so I'll close the public hearing, and I'll make a comment that it's been waiting a long time for Popeyes to come on by and open up a site. It's a good project, and thank you for seeing the concerns of the drive-through and the driveway, and kind of working with how to address it and providing a solution. I'm excited for to join the restaurants here in Fillmore. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. I know the franchisee is very excited. I can see Tom's also a project manager. We've worked really hard with Brian. Brian's been very patient with us as we navigated through ordinances and requirements, but I'm glad everyone's happy with the ultimate final design.
Great.
Is there any other comments from the planning commissioners? Then we'll go ahead and make a motion on the 3 recommendations.
I guess I have a question before we make the motions. So there was a concern by a couple of the commissioners about the drive-through width and the like flattening the drive-through on the egress part of it. How do we handle, so do we make the motions and then include those as part of the motions, or do we have to move this meeting? Do we have to address those, have those addressed before and bring it back next month? Maybe that's a question for Michael or Brian. I'm not sure procedurally what the right step is here.
So what we can do now, if it's just a matter of nailing down some language on the driveway width as part of a condition of approval, what we can do is come up with that language right now as part of the meeting, add that to the conditions of approval, and then that would be part of the commissioner's motion, assuming that that's what the consensus was among the commissioners. But I think what we might need, if that's something where there's a consensus, Ryan and I can take a minute here to sort of nail that down and figure out what the intent was and what condition the planning commission has in mind.
So I'll open it up to everybody. How does everybody feel in regards to widening that driveway and flattening it as well?
I mean, if going from 28 feet to 32 feet, I don't have a problem with that, as long as it still meets the Caltrans requirements and the city public works requirements. Then I'm okay with that, and we could just address that through a condition of approval. And then the flattening of the drive-through on the egress side of it, as long as that. If the applicants can handle that, or if we can handle that through a condition, then I'm okay with that. To me, I thought it was okay the way it was, but if that's something that we need to flatten a little bit then I think that I'm okay with that too. But yeah, if we want to address those just through some conditions, then that's fine with me.
I feel the same way too. I feel that we do need to widen it because of the amount of traffic and the way the layout is, that you have to get to the top of the lot to get into the drive-through and then exit at the bottom, and making that turn just to make it easier for people to come in and out a lot easier. Do we proceed with the condition of approval and add it? And if we do, would we add it to item 2?
Well, first, what we would do, if maybe before we go down this road, just a quick, should Brian and I take a minute or two now to come up with a condition on this?
I agree that we should, with regard to widening the driveway, I'm not real clear on the flattening of the egress that, and when you're using the term egress, Jamie, you're referring to, I don't know who first brought this up, but you're referring to the common drive.
Yeah, where you exit. No, I'm talking about where you exit the drive-through.
Oh, so where we talked about it.
So where it's where the sign is, there was a bulb out section. They wanted
Right.
to, they're talking about
Right.
flattening that a
For
little
the
bit to
exit.
make it
Okay.
so at the exit, yeah, the exit of the drive-through,
Okay.
so that you don't have to make such a harsh turn there.
Okay. My 2 cents is I don't think that part's necessary on the exit of the drive-through, but I do agree with the widening of the driveway out on the 126.
I'm glad you cleared that up because I was understanding the flattening of the angle of the driveway, not the
That's what I know.
drive-through.
I was picking up
Yeah.
some conflict on
Isn't that
Yeah,
what you
'cause I
guys were
also-
talking about? You were talking about the exit of the drive-through where that bulb out is, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But as it widens, I feel that angle is going to be, it's going to stick out less because it's going to encroach more into the drive-through as we widen the driveway.
If anybody's been, if anybody's been to the In-N-Out in Santa Clarita, you'll thank this later on because it's a nightmare to get out of that drive-through because you're literally going into the cars that are trying to get into the entrance.
The one in Bouquet, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I've been there. It's even a nightmare just to walk into the restaurant because the cars are lined up to go in the drive-through and exit the drive-through. And that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid with the amount of traffic that it's gonna, or the amount of people it's gonna pull, that it's right on the highway. People are gonna go in and out. They're not gonna think twice to go into the next drive-through or the next driveway, which is the brewery, and come up and about.
Right.
And that's my concern, getting in and out. Just everybody, I like the idea that the drive-through is towards the bottom, but just making it a lot simpler for them to get out and get on the freeway and get out of, the picture would be, or out of the whole shopping area or parking area would be a lot better.
They even had to cone it off. You've got cones coming out of that driveway at that In-N-Out. I mean, it's bad.
Well, we're open to whatever the commissioners decide. It can be wider than 32 since the neighboring parcel has it up to almost 48 feet wide. I mean, I wouldn't go that wide, but if we go wide enough, we could, stripe it in the middle so the lane in and out. I don't want to do a real barrier or a pork chop, as they say in, engineering, traffic design, street design, but definitely we can go wider. It will flatten out that bulb and we can still flatten out that bulb. We're open to any language that introduce both those changes.
I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the 32 feet.
And let me add another piece. Is it possible to make that drive-through exit right turn only?
Turn only.
That you have to exit onto the freeway?
Maybe that would be also encouraged by pushing that landscape strip in the middle down to avoid people trying to curb back up or turn left. So we can sign it, we can stripe it, we can pull that landscaping down to avoid people going back onto the site or into the parking field and encourage them to pull out only, exit only right.
Yeah, and maybe even pulling down the landscape like
Yes.
half of the width of the drive-through, just enough where it looks obvious that when you're entering from the 126 coming from the east, you're not going to want to turn into that exit and confuse it because there's half of the landscaping sticking in the road. But also not too complicated where if somebody is really, really big, that they got to jump on the landscape to be able to exit the drive.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Miguel,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm hearing some confusion on some of the terminology we're using here. When you say flattening, you're referring to flattening, or this is where it's difficult on a Zoom.
So
and I'm wondering if maybe
can you bring a picture up?
Yeah,
that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, the exit of the
right
through. So flattening means by bringing it down a little bit.
And that's what I understood earlier, but Miguel, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, yes,
Okay. And you're suggesting that we put a right turn only at that exit, not the one that's shared with the neighbor.
correct, correct. So here,
Michael, you look puzzled.
So maybe we could address the flattening part first. It's where that tree is, right there.
Okay,
That's
great.
what they're talking about.
Perfect. Okay.
Flatten that out and then making the driveway wider.
And just so you know, that's about 30-degree angle. You know, it looks bigger, but it's really, it pivots 30 degrees. And we can bring it down to half of that, to 15 or even 10 degrees. And then we can take that center planter island down, so to encourage people not to go back into the parking lot, but to exit out onto the main street. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Good.
Although,
Yeah, it does to me too.
and it's like I want to keep pointing to it, like you guys can see what I'm pointing at. Okay, so the driveway you're talking about widening is the one right there in the 126.
Yeah.
And it currently is at what width?
28 feet,
And we're talking about making it what?
32 feet.
32 feet. Okay, and the other one that you said is 40 something is the one west that's shared with.
Yes, the parking to the brewery is 40, almost 48 feet. No, down off of your main street.
Who's controlling the?
Right there, yes. That existing drive-through to the old, was it a Dollar General or I forget what it was?
Family Dollar.
Family Dollar. That was 48 feet, almost 48 feet.
Okay, so that's 48. Okay.
Yeah. And in my opinion, that's too wide. Because what you do is you end up getting two cars side by side going in the same direction. So you want to avoid that.
Okay, so are you suggesting, what Jamie, was it you about the right turn only? Who suggested that we do a right turn only on both driveways?
I suggested that, and it was only right turn only coming out of the drive-through, nothing to do with the driveway.
The coming out of the, okay.
Coming out of the exit of the drive-through.
Correct.
A right turn only, so they couldn't go up and park then, if you can only make a right turn.
Right, to encourage you to leave the site.
What if you drive through, you get your food and you want to park and eat it?
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because I thought then they would have to drive, hook a right, and then go back up into the brewery driveway just to get back in there, and that's just going to make more traffic.
Right.
They should be able to go through the drive-through and pick up their food and then pull into the parking lot and eat it if they like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I can support widening the driveway to 32. I can support taking that 30-degree turn and making it less, but the right turn only, I think there are going to be people that will want to pick up their food and then park in the parking lot. So
Right.
I don't think we should do the right turn only out of the drive-through.
That's fine.
I have one more question. Sorry, I agree with everybody because I did think about that, and it's not right that we just force them to exit and leave. You see where the landscaping is in the middle, towards the left of that, there's a lane that goes towards the 126. Is there a way where that bulb out could be aligned? And that, obviously that's going to push that driveway really big, but would it be an option? So kind of taking out that tree, that tree right there and aligning it kind of with the parking spaces, the parking stalls right in front of the restaurant, kind of having that whole lane exit. Right there, yep, right there.
Caltrans won't let us have two separate exits. So they're only allowing us one drive approach. We had another design where we had a one-way in and a one-way out to make it very clear, but Caltrans, we formally spoke with Caltrans and they denied having more than one drive approach for this size of a lot.
Okay, then I agree that we only do the widening and the 10-degree angle.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe just to recap, and Brian, I might need your help on understanding the technical aspects of this, but it sounds like the Planning Commission is generally interested in adding 2 additional conditions of approval. It sounds like the applicant is reasonably easily able to make these changes. So the first is that the driveway width along 126 is widened from 28 feet to 32 feet. And that's subject to City Public Works and Caltrans approval. And then, is that correct with the plan? What the Planning Commission's understanding is of that first condition?
Yes.
Yes.
And then on the second one, and this one's a little tougher for me to understand. We're talking about the, Brian, maybe you could help me with this.
Yeah.
It's the
We're talking about
flattening.
increasing the turning radius so that that landscape knuckle, I call it, or the bulb out turning radius is increased to allow for larger truck turning movements. And the architect can actually run a truck turning radius program on this and show what size trucks can make that turn.
And is that near the drive-through exit?
Yeah, that's at the exit.
Okay. So it's so what we would maybe want that one to say, increase the turn radius of bulb out at drive-through exit.
Correct.
To allow for larger truck turning movements.
Correct.
And was there any specific numbers that the Planning Commission wanted, or?
Well, I think right now,
I
think the Susan was saying it's a 30-degree turn, so we just want something less than a 30-degree.
We can do half. We can do the 15 to 10.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the 15, meeting it in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, same here.
Okay,
10's almost flat.
So how would that be increased turn radius?
Decrease the angle of the bulb out to 15 degrees.
Okay, decrease
from
angle.
30. Yeah, from 30
Okay.
to 15.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, let me also add, somebody mentioned earlier, I don't think it's necessary, but bringing that landscaping center island thing lower, meaning closer to the 126, if that bulb out is reduced to 15.
I think Miguel retracted that comment.
Okay.
Yeah, I retracted that in the exit sign.
Okay.
I think we were talking about there's a fine line between trying to discourage people from turning into the exit of the drive-through versus allowing them to exit the drive-through and still go into the parking lot. So
Right. Okay.
Okay, so we have 2 additional conditions of approval. And I suppose we don't need to figure out like exactly where these go now, but so additional condition number 1 is that the driveway width along 126 is to be widened from 28 feet to 32 feet, subject to City Public Works and Caltrans approval. And then number 2 is decrease the angle of the bulb out at the drive-through exit to 15 degrees to allow for larger truck turning movements. That okay.
Yeah.
So those are the additional.
You're muted, Michael.
And
So
we'll
those
say
are the
that those
additional 2 conditions that were just discussed by the Planning Commission.
yes, and timing wise, we would say prior to submittal of construction drawings for building permit.
Okay.
And I believe the commission's saying it doesn't need to come back, but you'll put it in the hands of staff to review and approve that.
I agree.
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Works for me.
Okay, so both of those are prior to submittal of construction drawings for the building permit?
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so do we move into a motion now to adopt these
Yeah.
3 items?
Yeah, I will make a motion to adopt CEQA categorical exemption for DP 21-3 and the CUP number 21-04.
I'll second that.
Do you have a second? Inez, can we get a roll call, please?
Excuse me. Can you hear
Inez.
me? Yes, can you hear me
Yes.
now? Okay, excuse me. Chair Miguel Magallanes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Aaron Todd,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrie Brogy,
Yes.
Commissioner Jamie Labor,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert Mendez.
Yes.
Quick question, Michael. When do we include these conditions of approval? You're muted.
Sorry, thank you. So that would be part of the second and third motion.
Okay.
What the person would just be subject to conditions approval as modified
Okay.
during the meeting here.
So we don't need to specify in detail. Okay.
No, it's up to whoever's making the motion could do that, subject to the driveway widening condition.
Okay. Okay.
Pulled out condition, but just as long as that the revised conditions of approval is referenced is fine.
So both of those should be included in 2 and 3? Okay, then I will make a motion to adopt Planning Commission Resolution 22-1026, approving DP number 21-03, subject to conditions of approval, specifically widening the driveway on 126 from 28 feet to 32 feet, subject to approval of Public Works and Caltrans. And second condition of approval, change the, we're using the word flatten the training radius for the bulb out at the exit to 15 radius to allow for larger vehicles to exit.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Inez, can we get a roll call, please?
Chair Miguel Magallanes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Aaron Todd,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrie Brogy,
Yes.
Commissioner Jamie Labor,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert Mendez.
Yes.
And for this next motion, whoever's making the can just reference the additional conditions that Carrie described instead of spelling it out specifically.
Okay, so I will make a motion to adopt Planning Commission Resolution 22-1027, approving CUP number 21-04 and CEQA categorical exemption subject to condition of approval and as approved in number 2. Does that work?
Yeah, just to it's with the modifications of the conditions of approval described in the previous motion by Commissioner Brogy. And so that'll be fine.
Exactly what Michael said.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Inez, can we please get a roll call?
Chair Miguel Magallanes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Aaron Todd,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrie Brogy,
Yes.
Commissioner Jamie Labor,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert Mendez.
Yes.
Okay, that was a good item. It took us a good time, but we can move on now to business items. I don't see any on the calendar. And we'll move over to section 10, reports and communications. Item 10A, planning and community development director.
The community
This is where
development
we,
director, yeah, the community development director is absent. I can field any questions if you have anything you want to ask about other projects or any other goings on in the city.
Do you have an update on when Wingstop and Jamba Juice might be opening? I know the last time you had said they were trying to do it by Super Bowl, but they didn't make it.
No, they didn't quite make it. Their last hang up was the gas meters. So they had ordered the gas meters when, we were kind of thinking they were ready to open. And then those I think are installed or getting installed and resolved now. And then another item was the fire alarm. The fire chief had a question on that. So they're resubmitting some plans for that. The intent is still by the end of the month. So fingers crossed. And I can send you some more photos and a bullet point update if you guys like those. But it's
and then any updates on the movements with Sonic?
Yeah, Sonic submitted, I believe we'll call it the 6th plan check for construction drawings. And they have since received our city engineer's comments on those drawings. So it's back in their court to resubmit. And they are still intent on building it. We're down to just a few things, mostly engineering. And that transaction just occurred within the last week or so that they got new engineering comments. So we'll get an update for you on when they plan to resubmit, but we're like this close.
okay. If there's no other comments for Senior Planner Brian, I will go to item 10B, Planning Commission brief reports. Do we have any?
I have one comment. Next month's Planning Commission is on the 16th. And that's when the road trip is supposed to occur. Is that going to be done via Zoom as well? Or are we moving it?
At this point, we're thinking we'll move that meeting. We do have a couple of items that we are intending on having in March, but being that you guys are out, we would like to keep it in person. So hopefully we'll make it for April. That's the current thinking.
Yeah. I mean, Brian, I don't know how everyone else feels, but if it's things that we could move along faster by not pushing it till then, I'd be willing to have a meeting on a different night, either the following week.
Okay. We can discuss with the city attorney. Maybe Michael can weigh in on whether we can have a special meeting.
Yeah, that would be something that we probably have to, at the future have to figure out what agenda items there would actually be. I know in the past that has happened where the meeting has been shifted and the regular meeting is canceled and then a special meeting is noticed. So that would be the process, but I think we'd have to have a better handle on the items and also to be fair to whatever applicants there might be at that future meeting who might have been planning on appearing at the regular meeting. That's something that need to be considered too.
Okay.
We'll stand by to hear further notice, but I have the same question as well. Thank you, Aaron. We'll move, if there's no more comments or brief reports from any of the planning commissioners, we'll move on to item 10C. Planning Commission members may propose items for placement on future agenda.
I was just going to make a comment on this one. It might be helpful if Kevin would provide us with the list of what we already have on that, just so that some of our newer members so they'd be familiar with what's on that list, and that might spur some other ideas for them to propose other items. So just throwing that out there, that I think that would be helpful if Kevin could provide that to us, like what's already on this list.
I think that's a good idea. Then we'll move to section 11. We'll adjourn the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission adjourns to Planning Commission regular meetings scheduled or tentatively scheduled for, I guess it would be April. Because the March one we're not doing.
Well, I think since it hasn't been, I think it would make sense to formally adjourn to that regularly scheduled meeting now,
Okay.
since it hasn't been formally canceled yet. If it were to be canceled, it would be appropriately noticed at some point in the future.
Okay.
How is it?
We'll-
A quick question for Michael. How is it formally canceled?
It's sort of when it's the same, it would be the same process as if there weren't, when there aren't agenda items. I think it typically happens the week before a notice of cancellation is posted. And I think I think that's actually physically posted at City Hall, and then an email is sent to the commissioners. Most often that happens when there aren't any items that are going to be coming forward on an agenda. So it'd be the same process for doing that. And then the special meeting would kind of be a separate thing. I forget, it's been a little bit since we did this, so I would have to look back at how we did that. It was probably a couple years ago where that a meeting had to be shifted a week, but it wasn't actually until the week before, I don't think, that regularly scheduled meeting was actually formally canceled.
Okay.
But I will,
Well, then
something we'd look at when we're going down that road.
Okay, we might have to look at it soon, but we'll adjourn the Planning Commission regular meeting scheduled for March 16th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in the City Council chambers at City Hall. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you all. Good seeing you.
Everybody.
Hi, Michael.
Good night.